Everybody's got a price, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a pod, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price.
What's up, everybody? It's Marcus D'Angelo, and we're back for another episode of Everybody's Got a Pod, and you know this man right here. That is the $1 million man, the Hall of Famer, Ted DiBiase. Ted, what's going on, my friend?
You know what? I'm having a good day so far, and I get to see you and spend a little time with you. So, what can be better than that, right?
And Ted, we've got a really fun episode today as we take our second look back at your time in WCW and with the NWO. Today, it's a look back to September 1996 to close out our month of September here on the podcast. And man, there is plenty to discuss. But before we get started, you guys know the drill. I have to remind everybody to get over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@everybody'sgotapod. Not only do you get clips and highlights from our show, but we also do some YouTube exclusive content that we put out every single Monday. These are stories that you will not hear on the podcast. So if you like what we're doing here, you are going to love the content you get over on our YouTube channel. But wait, there's more. We also do.
And everybody has a price, and it's very reasonable.
It's free to subscribe. That's a reason.
Yeah, that doesn't get any more reasonable than that, huh?
Not only is it free, you can actually get some stuff because occasionally we do giveaways over there of signed merchandise straight from the $1 million man himself.
Can you imagine the $1 million man giving something away?
I mean, the times the times have changed, Ted. This is a whole new $1 million man. He's giving stuff away over on our YouTube channel. And to be eligible, all you have to do is go subscribe. That's it. You're automatically entered for all future giveaways. Again, it's youtube.com/@everybody'sgotapod. Subscribe right now. And Ted, right at the top of the show, first thing I wanted to ask you about was something I missed last month when we were discussing August 1996 in WCW. Chris Jericho made his debut with the company on 8/20 against Jerry Lynn. Ted, Chris is still in the business today, still top of the game, really, at working at a high level with AEW. And I know that a lot of people consider him one of the best ever. I'm wondering about your thoughts when it comes to Chris Jericho.
I know Chris. Personally, I've known him to be a good guy. I mean, he's like anybody else in the business. Like you might have 6 friends and one enemy. I don't know. I don't know if Chris has got a lot of enemies. I don't think so. And one of the things that Chris did. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but he set up a deal where fans and wrestlers, and obviously he found a way for the wrestlers to go at a very discounted price or free a cruise.
The Jericho Cruise, yes.
The Jericho Cruise. Is he still doing it?
Yes, sir, he is.
He hasn't called me.
We're calling you out right now, Chris. Give Ted a ring. Get him back on the cruise.
Yeah, but I can't remember what time of year he does them, but I guess he does it annually. But I went on, and you know what? And initially I thought, wait a minute. So I'm going to be on a cruise ship, and I can't remember whether it was a 4-day cruise or a 7-day cruise. But either way, I'm going to be on a cruise ship, and you're out in the middle of the ocean. There's nowhere to escape with a boat full of wrestling fans.
Could get wild.
So I was like, but you know what? It worked out fine. And the fans were, they were pretty cool. They were understanding of, these guys, because there were opportunities during that time period where all of us were there to sign autographs and meet him and greet him and take pictures with him and everything. And it worked out pretty good. So yeah, the Jericho Cruise.
That's awesome. And I've talked to a few talents that have been on the Jericho Cruise, and they all say what a great experience it is and that they love going to do it. So yeah, certainly sounds like a blast. I'd love to get on the Jericho Cruise at some point. It sounds like a hell of a party. So yeah, we'll have to make that happen someday. But
back to Chris's talent. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. One of the most talented guys in the business. And I didn't know that he was still working. I mean, how old would he be now?
I know that he's in his 50s. I can't remember his exact age, but
Yeah.
he looks great. And he used to do that lion salt, like a moonsault off the middle rope. He still does it. So yeah, so I mean, he's kept himself in really great shape. And yeah, it's
Well, that's
he
good.
just he continues to have excellent matches even at this age. So it's fun to watch him. Nowadays, a lot of fans are really critical when they see Chris Jericho matches. Most people are still really happy to see him out there. A lot of people are critical because they're like, he doesn't have it anymore. He's not as good as he used to be. It's like, hey guys, he's in his 50s. So why don't we all just enjoy the fact that he's still out there wrestling and what he can do? And it's because 20 years from now he's not going to be wrestling anymore, presumably.
No.
So let's enjoy it while we've got it.
I retired, it's like I retired from the ring at age 40. And, a lot of guys, there are a lot, like you said, just like Chris, there are guys who stay in shape well enough to, I mean, I would say if you hang around after 50, I wouldn't expect you to be doing too much. There's some guys, and I won't mention any names, that I see hang around way, way beyond their prime. And, it's almost almost embarrassing,
Yes.
it's like, I feel sorry for him, but I wouldn't put Chris Jericho in that category.
No, certainly
Not at
not.
all.
And man, if you saw him in the shape he's kept himself in over these years, it's like, hey, like he might not be as fast as he used to be. Maybe he can't like get to his spots as quickly as he once was able to, but man, the guy can still go.
Yeah.
So
Extreme
yeah.
guy.
Yeah, great guy. Ted, we're getting ready for Fall Brawl here in September, and that means the War Games match. 2 rings, an enormous steel cage that covers both rings, and the cage even has a roof on it, so there's no escape but the entrance. It's a really cool concept in an era when the WWF was still just using that big, stiff blue cage that I know you're familiar with. Ted, what did you think of the War Games concept in WCW?
Good idea. I mean, he's just figuring out who's going to do what to who.
I know you were on the road back when the War Games match was invented by Dusty Rhodes. It was he had watched the Road Warriors movie, whatever that's called, with Mel Gibson.
I know. I can't think of it either, but I know what you're talking about.
Right. So he had watched the movie, and he invented the War Games match as kind of like his own Thunderdome. And the Four Horsemen made the match famous. Now, because you were so busy, Ted, did you ever get an opportunity to watch any of those epic matches in JCP?
I don't think I did. I heard about all of them, but I don't know. I don't know that I was ever present for one.
I know that you weren't present for any of them, but man, those matches really kind of set the standard for the War Games match, and it became this tradition in WCW, and we're continuing the tradition here at Fall Brawl 96. In the first week of September in WCW, it's got you coming down through the crowd again and hanging around, looking anxious for a little while before departing. Later, you'd be seen getting into an NWO limousine with another mystery wrestler, and Sting and Luger would steal a police car to give chase. On that same night, Hall and Nash and Hogan would come out after a main event featuring the Four Horsemen versus the Dungeon of Doom, and a big surprise takes place. Let's check it out in our first clip this week.
Everybody, they're going after the Dungeon of Doom. Well, I can see that the Dungeon of Doom and the Four Horsemen are now together, representing World Championship. Here comes the Giant. Look out, NWO. Thank God for the Giant. Never thought we would hear it. The Giant is going to have their lunch. The Giant is in the building. Whoa, 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 whoa. The Giant. What is the Giant? No! No! What is going on here? Can't be! No! No! double sledge. Oh, Savage. Savage is in trouble now. Savage is being painted, and now they've got yellow paint. Oh man, a yellow streak up the back of the Macho Man Randy Savage.
All right. So, I mean, it's a pretty hot angle, dude, with this spray paint gimmick and, turning on some of the most beloved people. And now the Giant is part of the NWO here. What'd you think watching it back?
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, it was like, you know what? It was one of those things that got real hot. It was one of those things that comes along every now and then. And you can plan it, you can do this and do that, and but you're never just really sure, how well it's going to get over until you do it. And that got over just huge. I mean, again, the biggest angle in all of wrestling was not any angle that WCW or the WWF was doing. The biggest angle in wrestling was the war between the two companies.
Yep.
And that's what kept all the fans watching. They're watching all of it. They're going from one to the other every week to see what's going to happen next.
And at this time, WWF was just soundly getting their asses kicked every single week in the ratings because the NWO was just red hot, and surprises like this kept happening where, okay, all of a sudden the Giants, and we got to see what that looks like.
Well, and part of the reason for it going down that way is because, and I'll be honest, here's all these stars that were made by Vince McMahon.
Yep.
And then one after another, including yours truly, leaves and goes to the other ship.
That was a huge element, yes, because all of a sudden these fantasy matchups that people had been picturing, like, hey, what if Razor Ramon, wrestled William Regal? Like, all of a sudden, these fantasy matchups become a reality in pro wrestling during this era. So I think that fans were really engaged. Another thing that was happening during this time was that Eric Bischoff was giving away the results of WWF Raw because it was pre-taped in these days. So Eric Bischoff during the show would say, hey, don't bother turning the channel to Raw because here's what happens. Here's the match they've got. Here's who won, and giving away the results. So he's like, don't even bother turning the channel.
I never knew that.
Yeah. What do you think, Ted? Is it kind of fair play, or do you think that's going a little bit too far against competition?
Well, it's like all is fair in love and war, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're trying to win, you pull out all stops. So I would, hey, you know what? Vince probably would have done the same thing. I can't be certain, but but I'm just saying, and again, I get along with Eric great now. I mean, I have no problem with Eric, but at the time, Eric Bischoff didn't really know that much about wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and I don't know who at in the Turner scheme of things hired him and made him the guy over all their wrestling programming, but he's a guy who virtually had no background in wrestling.
Which makes the whole thing even more unprecedented. I mean, here's this guy who's really got kind of more of a TV and sales background. And yes, he'd spent some time in the AWA as an announcer, and he did a great job as an announcer.
Yeah.
But that's what makes this whole thing even more unprecedented is here's this guy who's not a wrestling guy really, but he's coming in, and I mean, WCW is turning a profit for the first time since its inception under his watch. So he was doing something right.
Well, and again, just to further the point made by the WWF $1 Million Man, everybody's got a stinking price. And Ted Turner was handing out the big bucks to grab all this talent. I mean, and I signed one time I had a 3-year no-cut contract. I mean, they had to pay me whether I was there or not.
Mm-hmm.
I had never had that. And, it's nobody's business how much I got. But that's the other thing is that I think this is the beginning of guaranteed contracts.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, because until this happened, the WWF was the only, they're the only show on the road. It's kind of like, if you're going to work for Vince, here's what I'm going to pay you. And he never really tells you. Well, I don't know. You know, I mean, some guys might be different. I don't know that came after. I'm sure that came after me, but maybe some that came before me. You know, I wasn't, you know, the biggest draw ever, but it was kind of like, you know, take it or leave it.
You know, I've heard wrestlers say in the past that, you know, they didn't know what kind of a year they were going to have in the WWF until they got their WrestleMania payoff. Then they were like, okay, this will kind of show me, you know, sort of what I can project out for the remainder of the year.
Yeah.
So now you're going from that, where it's all very, very uncertain, to now it's like, I know exactly what I'm going to make, when I'm going to make it, and I don't even necessarily have to be here in order to collect it.
And again, that's what was appealing to me. But, and yes, you know, business is business, and I know, but I mean, based on how well I'd have been treated by Vince, you know, and there was part of me that it was kind of like, yeah, man, but he's treated you so well, but you know, he has treated, you know. Even Vince said it though, when he down the road and he hired me back. He says, when it comes right down to it, Ted, he says it's all about business.
Yep.
It's all about business, and you did what you had to do at the time to make business suit you, and rightfully so. So it was kind of like, you know, he says, hey, I get it. He gets it. What does he get? Everybody has a stinking price. You know, what is your price? You know, it's like, you know, if you had the opportunity to go somewhere else and make more money and do less, would you not do it? Of course.
Not to mention, you know, you're coming into WCW here and you're on guaranteed money and less days, and you're getting involved in the hottest angle in professional wrestling. I mean, you'd be a fool not to get yourself involved in that. And, you know, Ted, we discussed that moment with the Giant here becoming an NWO member on our joining the NWO episode here, you know, a month or so back. Which is available now in our archives. The Giant, Paul White, is being touted as the son of Andre, and he really made a big splash here in his short time in wrestling. What were your first impressions of him whenever you met him? Did you see Andre-like potential?
I don't think I saw Andre potential, but I saw potential. I mean, not number one, he's a great guy. Personally, he's a great guy. You know, I don't know anybody. You know, you'd have to be a real butthole not to be able to get along with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, in terms of, I saw a lot of potential, but but again, the Andre that I knew was the Andre that had already put in several years and had a lot of ring savvy and knew how to carry himself and knew how he had mastered the art of wrestling. All of these other people that were, you know, half his size and making them look good.
Yes.
You know, and I think it took Paul a little time to figure that out.
You know, Eric Bischoff has talked about Paul on his podcast, 83 Weeks, and he said that, you know, it's easy to paint yourself into a corner when you're booking a big man. And by that he means, you know, it's really easy to make a big man a heel because, you know, they're bigger than everybody else and they can take advantage and you know, really put a baby face in peril. He's like, how do I make Paul White a baby face? He was like, it's difficult to book him as a baby face because it's not very believable to put him in peril against people. And so he's like, so it's really easy to kind of paint yourself into a corner with booking and run out of ways to book a guy that size. So it's interesting, and I mean, certainly a great athlete, and what an asset here in WCW at the time. Meltzer is pretty critical of the way that the situation was handled here in the ring with the NWO beatdown, because NWO essentially beat up 8 guys before the Giant even came down to the ring. You know, with the upcoming issues between the NWO against the Four Horsemen, Meltzer felt it made the Horsemen look weak. Do you feel like it weakened the Horsemen at all, kind of going into Fall Brawl?
I don't know. I don't really think so. it's going to take a lot to make those 4 guys look weak.
Right.
Just put it that way.
And, we're trying to get over the NWO here as this kind of dominant force. You've got to put the baby faces in danger, which is the
Yes,
Horsemen and the Dungeon of Doom in this
Exactly.
instance. So it's we're just telling a story here. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Well, Ted, speaking of the Horsemen, this is the 8th or so version of that group. This time it's with Flair, Anderson, Benoit, and Mongo. And man, there's no denying the success of the Four Horsemen up to this point. But at this stage, did you think it had run its course, or did you feel like there was still a little meat left on the bone if they were properly booked?
Well, if they were properly booked, I think there was still a little meat on the bone because the 2 of the strongest obvious characters in that foursome could carry it.
Yes,
and that's it. Flair and
Arn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and Steve McMichael was green and coming straight off the gridiron here into pro wrestling, but I mean he was charismatic as hell, entertaining to watch on screen, and man, Chris Benoit was a hell of a worker. A lot of people, Ted, have a difficult time going back and watching Chris Benoit wrestle now, given the circumstances. I personally will still watch a match of his because I can separate the man, the art from the artist, so to speak. But I mean, Chris, not a name that we're going to discuss here very much on the show. So I guess now is about as good a time as any. Ted, his story is probably the most infamous in wrestling history, but I'm wondering about your thoughts when it comes to Chris Benoit.
Everybody who knew Chris liked him.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Benoit was not a guy who had a whole lot of enemies, and all I can say is that I don't know what what caused him to go off his rocker like that, but everybody would tell you the Chris Benoit that I knew and that everybody else knew was not capable of doing that.
Yep.
I mean, to kill your whole family and then kill yourself.
Oh.
It was probably, to me, that's the biggest shock that ever, in my entire career. That was the most shocking thing that I've ever seen. And like everybody else, everybody was like, not Chris. Are you kidding? Nobody thought, it's like there are some guys that, you could see some guys that were natural hotheads or whatever, and there were a lot of maybe other guys, in the wrestling business. So, well, they might not be surprised, but everybody was surprised. Everybody was, surprised to like non-belief. No, it couldn't possibly. Chris Benoit could not possibly have done that. Yeah, yet he did.
And there were some folks in the business that I know had committed murder, had committed crimes, had been really kind of awful people outside of the ring. So, for a guy who had the success that Chris Benoit had, he had made tons and tons of money in wrestling. For a guy who had formed a family and a loving family, a man of God as well, by his own admission. I don't think anybody could have predicted what happened there with him. My goodness, what a tragedy.
No, I just, only God knows.
It's a shame. It's a shame. And
Giant shame.
We'll try to get this podcast back on track here. On September 9th, the story of who the next member of the NWO will be takes an interesting turn, Ted, and you're involved in it. Let's have a look at this.
Oh, power moves, but here comes Nick Patrick to ringside. Nick Patrick is out. Nick Patrick motioning Luger to the back. Nick Patrick is going after.
Something's happened to Sting.
The back Luger is chasing Nick Patrick.
Something's happened to Sting, I bet.
I heard him say out back, out back. And there's, hold on, let's listen.
There's DiBiase.
I'm tired of this stuff, this DTA stuff. No. Don't trust anybody. He's got to go. You know why? You better learn to trust somebody right now.
Oh, no.
We're up against the wall. We got no way out. It's either you trust him or you don't. Look at me in the eye. You know I'm... What in the world is going on?
I can trust you.
Now look
I
at
know
his
I can
eyes
trust you.
and know that you can trust him.
I know I can trust him, too. Look, I'm looking at him. I'm looking at you. Everything's going to be okay.
No!
That's Sting's voice talking to DiBiase. No. Hey, stay right there. Stay right there. No.
Where is he?
Where's who?
You know who? What
There's Luger. Stinger. What would Stinger be doing with me? Look, Luger, I'm standing out here in a parking lot minding my own.
No!
That's it.
No!
That's it. Oh, that's right. Oh,
No!
come on, finish. That's right. Oh, we're in bad trouble now. We're in bad.
Leave this. Sting has turned. He's been fought off by DiBiase. It is Sting and the NWO. No.
Oh, you thought you'd never see this.
No.
I said you can't trust anybody. You can't trust a soul here. And there you see it. Sting standing side by side with the NWO, beating up his partner Lex Luger and getting into that limousine.
What are we going to do for the War Games? Oh, my God! DiBiase standing out there in the rain and Hogan putting the boots to
Why
Lex
would
Luger.
Sting do this?
This crowd has no idea of what has just happened.
Well, there it is, Ted. I don't know why seeing Luger out there in his trunks in the pouring rain, laying down in a parking lot, and you putting the shoes to him. I don't know. It takes.
Once again, everybody's got a price.
I mean, so it would seem two people had a price here. Not only Sting, allegedly, but Nick Patrick, seems to lead Luger into a trap out there. I will say, though, Ted, Sting looks a little off here. And this, of course, would be revealed as the fake Sting, Jeff Farmer. But I'd love to get your thoughts on this angle.
Oh, well, I thought it was, it was one of the better things they did, I thought, coming because, it appears to be one thing and it's like the old card trick, sleight of hand. Mm-hmm. Now you see him, now you don't. And will the real Sting please step forward? So, anyway. And, overall, Marcus, the NWO angle, the NWO thing, in and of itself was, it was good. It was really good, but the thing that separates, to me, the two companies is, now what are you going to do? Mm-hmm. There was nobody in the Turner organization that knew how to keep it going, and there were a whole lot of chiefs and not enough Indians, if you know what I mean, in the dressing room, because all these guys had these, this thing in their contract, creative control. I only have to do what you tell me to do if I like it. Yep. And that never works in wrestling. It was good while it lasted, but the truth is it didn't last long.
I've heard Eric Bischoff admit that there were times when he'd show up at TV and he didn't know what was happening that day as he's getting to the building. Yeah. I mean, I can remember nights when the show is starting. I mean, the dang show is starting. It's a live show, and they still don't know what they're going to do in the main event. Those were exciting nights. Okay, guys, let's take a minute to discuss our partner and their product, which I will not start the day without. I'm talking about AG1, the daily foundational nutrition supplement that supports whole body health. I used to start every day with a bunch of multivitamins to get myself where I needed to be, or even worse, mixing a healthy shake. The vitamins are expensive and annoying to have to remember, and to get the shake right, you've got to go shopping and then get all the ingredients, and then after all that's done, you have to clean the blender, get around all those blades, and it just takes up a bunch of your valuable time. Well, nearly a year ago, I began drinking AG1 every day because I was fed up with my morning routine, and let me tell you guys, it has truly become a game changer for me. Now I have a single solution that supports my entire body and covers my nutritional bases every day. I wanted more energy. I wanted to make sure that my immune system was well supported, especially with my young daughter going to daycare every day and coming home with a bunch of germs. I wanted better gut health. I wanted a simple solution to incorporate into my daily routine that I enjoyed the taste of. Well, AG1 checked every single box. Here's the best part for me, guys. It's easy. My schedule is pretty much full every single day, and AG1 made life easy for me by providing 75 high-quality ingredients that give me key daily nutrients by simply mixing one small scoop with water. That's it. I drink it, and I'm done. It's an easy micro habit that delivers macro results. Now, I know what your next question must be, because it would be my next question. How much does it cost? How about less than $3 a day? Break that habit of going to Starbucks or the gas station every day for some unhealthy breakfast that you don't need or some expensive specialty coffee. Spend less money and get a science-driven formulation of vitamins, probiotics, and whole food source nutrients instead with AG1. Now that is what you call a win-win. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/EGAP. That's drinkag1.com/EGAP. Check it out, and I know that you're going to love it like I do. So, Ted, with that angle outside and the beatdown and, Sting seemingly joining the NWO, the match and the stage was set for Fall Brawl on September 15th, 1996. Hall, Nash, and Hogan are joined in the ring by the fake Sting, but the announcers are putting him over like he's the real Sting. They have Anderson, Flair, and Luger in trouble when the countdown begins for another member of Team WCW to come out. Let's have a look.
15 seconds remain.
He's stinger splashing everybody.
10,
Who can this be?
9,
Who can this be?
8,
Saturday,
7,
here we go, guys.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What the?
It's Sting.
That is Sting! That is Sting! Oh, yes! Get on him, baby! He was telling the truth!
We've got two
Oh,
Stings.
yes!
He was telling the truth.
Okay, now clean house! Go to work! Get the Nature Boy! Get the Enforcer! Get moving! Start kicking some butt! Come on, Sting! Come on, Luger! Take Hogan out! Concentrate on Hogan! Don't worry that much about the other guys. Concentrate on Hogan. He's the one we've got to stop, and stop now.
There it is.
There it is, Stinger Splash. Yes. Got them both.
No question the elevation of those stinger splashes. That is Sting.
No, that is Sting.
But wait a minute, he's the only one fighting here.
He is doing it single-handedly. Sting single-handedly. He laid him out. You bet. He has taken the NWO to the water trough. He's done it all by himself.
Can you imagine?
And they didn't trust him.
They didn't trust him.
Well, you look at this now, confrontation. Sting just had words with Luger.
Is that good enough for you right there?
Wow.
Is that proof enough?
Not now, not now. He just told him to stick it. He said, is that good enough for you?
And he's leaving.
He showed him you thought I was a traitor. You thought I was a Benedict Arnold. I said I wasn't. You turned your back on me. Now I want to show you that I can take the NWO by myself, and I don't need you guys anymore. That's the impression I get.
All right, so we're going to pause the action right there. We'll pick it back up here in a few minutes. But, man, I wanted to talk to you about this angle. I absolutely love this with the fake Sting, and then we bring out the real Sting to show that he was, in fact, the fake Sting, even though the crowd, all you had to do was look at the guy and, it's Jeff Farmer. But Meltzer was kind of critical of the story. It's which, of course, is his job to pick things apart. I mean, there are holes, yes, but let's all just suspend our disbelief for a little bit and tell a story here. Sting feels betrayed by his friends, and they thought he was a traitor. I mean, pretty simple storytelling at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. Well, and I didn't have any. I didn't have any problem with it, and again, I like Meltzer too, but I said he's not the authority on,
right.
He didn't,
what's good or bad.
He didn't write the wrestling encyclopedia.
Right. And look, a lot of his takes can be great sometimes they're off. I think in this instance, hey, let's not overthink it. We're just,
and you know what? That's just human nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
One man's, apples, another man's, lemon.
that's it. And Ted, this angle would be what would lead Sting to becoming that much darker character, the all white face paint,
Yeah.
kind of reminiscent of The Crow, if you've ever seen that movie.
Yeah.
We'll discuss it at length down the road, but just on the surface, Ted, what did you think of this changing character for Sting?
Well, again, I thought it was okay. I mean, it's, I guess the bottom line is, what did he think? I mean, yes, I guess with so much in wrestling, it's all the timing, and was it really good timing to turn him? It may have been, it's kind of like anything you can do, like the guys, the wrestlers always put it this way. You always, in every show, you always want that holy shit moment when everybody goes, I didn't see that coming. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And the people definitely didn't see that coming.
Right. Who could predict that, it's a little ways down the road here, but who could predict that Sting would turn into this darker character that's now hanging out in the rafters and kind of like, okay, is he good? Is he evil? And Sting actually credits Scott Hall with that character. Scott told him about the Crow character, and he was like, hey, I noticed you let your hair go dark. He's like, you ever think about growing it out? And, check out this movie, The Crow. And next thing you know, everything changes for Sting.
Yeah.
And that's kind of Sting is actually still active today. Did you know that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, gosh, I don't know. I hope he's not doing much.
I mean, dude, some of the bumps that he takes on TV and on pay-per-view have been wild. He's jumping through tables and stuff. He's doing some pretty crazy stuff, but he's stayed in great shape. And by the way, this character that he's about to turn into, he's that character right now, the Crow Sting. So just really, really cool all these years later. I mean, it resonated so well that he's still doing it.
Yeah. Well, God bless him, man. You've only got one body. And, as I approach the big 7-0, man, I tell you what, I get up in the morning and I let the hot water run on my lower back. And, it's kind of like I gotta get the old oil can out to let's get all the parts moving again. So anyway,
so the NWO would win this match, and a brawl would ensue afterwards between the two sides. Savage would interfere because Hogan had caused him to lose earlier in the night against the Giant, and the NWO beat Savage down before this unforgettable moment happens in our fourth clip this week.
Wait a minute, Elizabeth is on her way to the ring.
Is Flair still at the ring or what?
I imagine.
No, Flair's back here. That's Elizabeth that's come to. She better get out of there.
NWO.
What is she doing here?
She's a member of the NWO, isn't she?
Oh, come on. What is she?
Oh, you know what's happening here?
She is begging Hulk Hogan
to leave Savage alone. She's still in love with the Macho Man.
Well, it seems that way. She apparently still another choke slam.
She couldn't stand to see all these people beat up the Macho Man. He's totally helpless in there.
And she's covering the Macho Man, begging these thugs to leave him alone.
So much water already under the bridge. What a disgusting sight this is right here. What a disgusting sight.
Oh, wait a minute. They are spray painting Elizabeth.
What a disgrace.
This is
Hogan, you've dropped to new levels now. You're the lowest form of life I've ever seen.
Hogan wants a microphone. Don't give it to him. He has spray painted the dress of Miss Elizabeth. He is demanding a microphone now. And he got David Pinzers.
You know what, guys?
This is insane.
Yo, Winston-Salem!
Wow.
You know something? These
two losers, these two lowlifes, they made a sacred oath. And they said that they would be together until death do us part. Well, courtesy of the NWO, in Hollywood Hogan, we're gonna make that happen. Two pieces of trash.
Spitting on her,
He spits on Elizabeth. This is the lowest point in the history of WCW.
Woo! Holy smokes, Ted.
That was heavy.
That was heavy.
Yeah.
And wow. I mean, spray painting Elizabeth as she tries to protect Randy, then spitting on her. I mean, watching it back all these years later, what are your thoughts?
Heavy. Yeah, definitely heavy. And again, if that can't get you any heat, then nothing can. I mean, that was.
Yeah, you said it.
And either further solidifying the total turn of Hogan, from the superhero to the supervillain.
Yep. They always say that, as much as you're loved whenever you're a baby face, that's how much they'll hate you when you become a heel and vice versa.
Yeah.
And
True.
that seemed to be the truth here with Hulk, because, oh man, and you heard the crowd chanting Hogan sucks or whatever they were saying.
Yeah.
And just some, nuclear heat. And Ted, you're here. You're right in the thick of the action. You're standing in the ring when this is happening. You were ringside for War Games. And, in your past, you'd experienced a lot of wild heat, between the stuff with JYD and Tommy Rich, the $1 Million Man, of course, had a ton of heat. And now here you are with the NWO spray painting one of the most beloved figures in wrestling. Where would you rate your NWO experience as far as hottest angles of your career?
I wouldn't rate it as one of the hottest angles of my personal career.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was not like I was not a main figure in the deal. It was Hogan, it was Savage, it was Sting, is the immediate guys, the guys that are still got the tights on and working. And I by this time became a mouthpiece, and that's all I was, just to pour salt on the wound, if you will.
Right.
But in terms of heat, it was probably one of the most heated angles I was ever been a part of, but I wouldn't rank it as like the top heat getter in my personal career.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And man, it's just watching it back all these years later, you can really kind of feel the electricity in these buildings, and Ted, there's a lot more at stake here at Fall Brawl than just the match. There was also a stipulation that if the NWO won, they would get their own show. Meltzer had this to say in the 9/23/96 Observer. Current plan, which could change, is for NWO to get the Saturday night show, either 1 hour per week or 2 hours every other week. The NWO TV show is a cute idea, but I don't know how they can work it. Who will they wrestle? If it's the same WCW jobbers, then it's obvious it's the same promotion. If they want to have competitive matches, it's not like they're going to wrestle each other, so they'll have to use the Marcus Bagwells of the world to put them over. Ted DiBiase will be the color announcer. No decision regarding play-by-play man. So, Ted, you and I discussed before that Bischoff's plan for you right out of the gate was for you to be a color commentator. And now it's looking like the plan is set to come together. Overall, though, would you say that you prefer being ringside as a manager or as someone who can occasionally get physical, or would you prefer to be strictly behind the announcer's desk?
Man, I don't, looking back at it, I can't even remember exactly how I felt about it at the time, but I know that, if I do this, if I'm at ringside and I'm being more physical, then I'm there more.
Mm-hmm.
But if I am just a mouthpiece, it doesn't require my presence as much.
Right.
And so based on the length of my career and where it's kind of like, I think I've said that a lot of this. I always promised myself that by the time I turned 40, I would be out of the ring. I might be part of the show, but I wasn't going to be a physical part of I wasn't going to be an active wrestler anymore.
Right.
And you know what? As I'm looking at 70, here in just a few months, I'm so glad I made that decision, because there's a lot of other guys that are right about my same age that didn't make that decision, and physically they're in much better, they're in much worse condition than I am.
Yes. Definitely a blessing that you stopped when you did, especially after the neck injury. It's just not worth that kind of a risk. But I mean, we saw you in the parking lot there kicking Luger and stuff, and I mean, here you are. This angle is just red hot. Is there any temptation in your mind at all, like, maybe I could do like one more match? Especially when something hot like that is going on.
No. I mean, I guess I put it this way. What would the $1 Million Man say? Everybody's got a price. Imagine if you offered me a boatload of money to put the tights on and do it one more time. If the price is right, I'm sure I'd go.
And man, like, let me say, looking at you in this era, you're wearing a suit, but I saw you in a t-shirt earlier. Like, you look to be in pretty good condition. Like, okay, he still looks like the $1 Million Man. He could still go.
Yeah, well, just so long as I keep the t-shirt on.
Maybe a changing gear for the $1 Million Man here in WCW. So on Nitro, the night after Fall Brawl, Sean Waltman would make his WCW debut, similarly to the way that you did, by sitting in the crowd. And yeah, I mean, Sean, what a great addition to the NWO. But here we are. It's in a very, very short period of time. You've joined. We've got Fake Sting. We've got the Giant. Now we've got Sean Waltman. This is kind of the period when it starts to become, okay, everybody's getting an NWO t-shirt now, right?
Yeah.
Well, they're not done yet. Speaking of people joining the NWO, the next week we'll bring another new member after the NWO attacks Randy Savage after his match. And then you guys take over the announce desk. Let's check it out. It's our final clip this week.
Wait a minute. I'm getting out of here. Tonight, come with me. Wait a minute. I don't want any trouble.
Hey, Chico, do your job, man. Do it well. Do your job, Chico. Huh? We told you so.
Joining the broadcast team,
Welcome the outsiders.
National Hall for the Outsiders, 6 in the background. Legendary Hulk Hogan.
And let's bring out our newest member, Ted DiBiase's head of security. Make welcome, if you will, a name very familiar to wrestling fans. Bring him out.
Get him out.
Teddy, where's
Get
Vincent?
off me. Vincent.
Bring out Vince.
Where's Vincent?
Vince, come on out.
Come on, Vincent. Come on.
Bring him out.
Easy.
Come on, buddy.
So let me ask you a question while we're waiting on Vincent. This whole thing here.
Here he
Are
comes.
you a real
Vincent!
model, or do you just look like one? Is the barbers on? What's the deal there?
Here he comes.
Hey, Vincent!
Come on, buddy.
What is who is
Piss off.
That
You're
is
gonna hang with the NWO, whether you like it or not, brother.
Here comes Vincent.
Come on, have some fun, man.
Hey, babe, welcome aboard.
Why so worried?
Don't worry, these checks
Keep
never
an
bounce.
eye on him, brother.
Hey, Scotty. Let me ask you a question. Now, you're taking over wrestling. That wasn't too hard.
That's for sure.
Okay, there he is. A guy you're pretty familiar there with. It's Virgil.
Oh, yeah, his one moment of glory.
And he's not Virgil anymore, as you heard. He's named Vincent here.
Yes.
What did you think of having him join the fold here at the NWO?
Well, I mean, and again, it was an opportunity again for him, because he had not been used for some time,
Yeah.
in the WWF either, and so here was an opportunity for him to make a little money and come on board, and another familiar face. So, it was a good deal.
Yeah, in my mind, I feel like as long as it's a WWF guy or a guy who's been associated with the WWF, it makes sense, because it's supposed to be an invasion in theory, right, of WCW by WWF talent. Now, the Giant doesn't fit into that, so I don't know what the story was there, but Interesting, in my opinion. I don't mind having Vincent now involved here. Ted, the rumor over the years has been that Mike was named Virgil in the WWF to take a shot at Dusty Rhodes, and now he's arriving in WCW as Vincent, which is a very clear shot at Vince McMahon. Can you confirm that Virgil was taking a shot at Dusty?
Yep.
Was this a calculated thing?
Like, I mean, again, like in none of those ideas were mine, by the way. I mean, it was kind of like I never knew Dusty's real name.
Oh, really?
That I didn't know that he was Virgil Runnels. But I obviously I found out. So somebody who I don't know whoever suggested it. So like, well, it's just if he's going to be Virgil for us, or in the WWF, then when it comes to WCW, somebody said, well, how about Virgil? Obviously, Dusty was a big name. And it's like you can't get a bigger name than Vincent. Let's call him Vince.
It's turnabout is fair play. I think it's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's just funny.
I think I've heard Bruce Pritchard say, no, Virgil wasn't a shot at Dusty Rhodes over the years. And it's like, oh, come on, Bruce. We all know better.
Oh, yeah.
So, Ted, we're almost near the end of the episode here. Before we do kind of wrap it up, I have to ask, are you a NASCAR guy at all?
A NASCAR guy?
Yeah. Are you into car racing?
Not really. But, I tell you what, when again, like the NWO had a car, and I don't know how all of that stuff transpired, and even now, when race car driving comes on TV, I really don't watch because it's okay. They're turning left again.
Right.
But when you're there, and like we were, like down in the pit, and those cars are going by bumper to bumper at 200 miles an hour, then you appreciate it big time.
Unbelievable amount of skill involved in being a NASCAR driver.
Yeah.
And I myself am not really a NASCAR fan per se, but I can certainly appreciate that. And you mentioned it right here after I asked about NASCAR because right after the debut of Virgil on this episode, Kyle Petty is announced as the official NASCAR driver for the NWO, and they bring the NWO car out and it revs its engine and it's right there in the arena. It's pretty fun, exciting stuff, and a massive crossover opportunity for WCW here, because a lot of racing fans also happen to be professional wrestling fans.
Yep.
So, I mean, it just works really well. Ted, when you're seeing this, are you surprised by how rapidly this thing is growing and expanding and like quickly becoming a part of pop culture?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was like, wow. Just when you thought it couldn't get any bigger, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You guys are everywhere. You're on TV shows. You've got the NASCAR influence now. Pretty soon monster trucks are going to be involved here. So, the NWO in a very short time is leaving a very, very big footprint on pop culture in America.
Yep.
All right, Ted, that's it for today. We're having a blast here on Everybody's Got a Pod, and we have a huge October planned here on the show. We'll revisit WCW in 96. We'll talk more about Mid-South. We'll do another Ask Ted Anything and more. But before we go, I want to remind you all that if you'd like to get this podcast on video with no commercials and get access to a ton of sports, entertainment, and other shows, get over to premierstreamingnetwork.com. Sign up for Premier Plus. If you're a wrestling fan or a fan of sports in general, or if you're just looking for some great entertainment, they've got you covered over there. It's Premier Plus on Premier Streaming Network. If you're enjoying our show and you're listening on your podcast app, just take a moment. Doesn't take you long. Get over there and subscribe, leave us a 5-star review because that helps Ted and I out a bunch. You can follow Ted at MDM Ted DiBiase on all of his social media. Follow me at Marcus P. D'Angelo on X, and follow Premier Streaming Network at Watch on Premier on X and at Premier Streaming Network on Instagram and Facebook. Ted, another look back at WCW. It's our second, and I think we're going to go month by month from here on and continue to do it because I love taking these looks back, especially during this one.
Yeah, I do too. Because it, for a guy that has a memory issue, this is helping me remember a lot of stuff. So thank you so much for all your time and diligence and looking this stuff up, because man, it's it's kind of like I'm going, golly, wonder what we're going to talk about today, and boom, it's like a plethora of stuff. So anyway,
I can tell you the pleasure is all mine, my friend. And, I look forward to doing this with you every week. I know that we've got a bunch of listeners that look forward to hearing your thoughts and opinions every single week. So we won't let them down. We'll be back next week with another one, right?
Absolutely. And remember, as always, everybody's got a price for the $1 Million Man, even the $1 Million Man.
We'll see you guys next time right here on Everybody's Got a Pod.